Amazing giant muskox interrupts woman's journey to rescue a frozen wolf cub. Discover the INCRE. Emma trudged through the endless expanse of snow, her heart caught between two worlds. At 33, she was a passionate wildlife biologist in the rugged Alaskan wilderness, yet every step she took echoed the memories of her family farm back in Kansas. The biting cold seeped through her layers, but it was the recent call about an abandoned wolf cub that stirred a deeper chill. Alone and wrestling with grief after her father's passing, her heart ached, not just for the cub, but for the family she'd left behind in a time of need. Each plodding step seemed heavier than the last, weighed down by the doubts swirling in her mind. What kind of daughter had she been, pursuing her dreams while her family struggled with loss and crippling debt? The stories her grandfather told her about the giant muskox echoed in the back of her mind, symbols of family and fortitude. Yet here she was, isolated in the icy wilderness, torn between her ambitions and the family she longed to help. Staring ahead, she suddenly halted. There, like a sentinel emerging from the storm, stood a massive muskox, blocking her path. Its long horns curled fiercely, and its thick coat looked impenetrable against the relentless snow. Emma's heart raced, not with fear but with an admiration mixed with frustration. This beast, a guardian of the wild, stood resolute. Why now? Why here? Emma hesitated, wrestling with her options. It felt like a metaphor for her situation, an obstacle she couldn't simply move around. Should she push forward and risk angering this majestic creature? Or should she respect its presence? She longed to respect the wild, yet she also felt an urgent pull towards the cub. Torn between urgency and reverence, her stomach twisted. Was this muskox a reminder to protect, to defend? Much like the family values that shaped her, it seemed to call her to prioritize what really mattered. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma watched the muskox intently, her frustration ebbing into contemplation. It was not just a creature in her way. It was steadfast, beautiful, and somehow, it seemed to guide her. Recalling her father's stories of resilience in times of strife, Emma felt an energy surge through her. The urgency to save the cub pulsed in her veins, but doubt gnawed at her resolve. What if she failed? What if she wasn't enough to save that fragile life? Cracks of ice echoed as the cold gnawed at her resolve, and she felt the weight of her father's shortcomings. His struggles merged with her burden. As she began to step around the muskox, it shifted, revealing a narrow trail hidden beneath the snow. Her breath caught. Was this the answer she sought? Or merely another illusion? Emma's pulse quickened as she moved toward the path. Uncertainty wrapped around her like the chill itself, compelling yet seemingly insurmountable. With every step, the stakes became clearer. She needed to find that cub not just for the wolf, but to reassemble the pieces of her own shattered identity, her ambitions, her family's legacy. Yet the question lingered, would she emerge successful? Or would this journey culminate in yet another failure? The narrow path unfolded before Emma, flanked by towering drifts of snow that glowed eerily in the twilight. She took a deep breath, sensing that this moment marked a pivotal turn in her journey. The muskox seemed to watch her with an ancient, knowing gaze as she stepped carefully around it, the creature neither retreating nor displaying aggression. It was a sentinel in more ways than one, embodying the tenacity she desperately sought for herself. As she pressed on, the wild landscape began to transform from a vast canvas of white into textured, undulating hills, mirroring the tumult within her. The growls of her doubts merged with the howling wind, but somewhere in the depths of her being, she felt a flicker, the desire to prove her worth, not just as a scientist but as a daughter and a protector. What lessons had her father instilled in her? She remembered him guiding her through storms, teaching her the language of endurance, of not backing down even in the face of overwhelming odds. Each step along the newly discovered trail filled her with a sense of purpose that sharpened her focus. Her heart pounded with a renewed determination. She was no longer just chasing a faint hope of finding the cub, but on a quest to reclaim her own identity in the wake of loss. Doubt was hot on her heels, but with every resolute footfall, she quelled the fear that threatened to unravel her. She envisioned the cub nestled against its mother, the life it had been denied, and the fragility of that existence weighed heavily upon her. Emma could not help but reflect on her own fragility. She suddenly found herself contemplating the irony of it all. This strong, unyielding muskox reminded her of the very strength her father had instilled in her, while simultaneously revealing how lost she felt without him. Determination surged as she reached her destination, a rocky outcrop dotted with a thin layer of snow. Scanning the surroundings, she caught sight of a hint of movement beneath a small pile of frost-covered branches. Emma's breath quickened. Could it be? With cautious excitement she approached, her heart racing faster with each anticipated moment. As she cleared the branches, her heart sank. A sickly, shivering form lay huddled within, a tiny wolf cub, barely more than a few weeks old, its body trembling with the cold. Emma knelt beside it, her fingers gently brushing the soft fur, and she could see that it was weak and half-conscious. Anguish clawed at her insides. This was not just another case. It was a living embodiment of her own struggles and aspirations, a call to action that resonated deep within her. "Hold on, little one," she whispered, her voice a mix of determination and tenderness. Instinctively, she began to devise a plan. Emma knew she had to act quickly, and every moment counted. But as she worked to gather supplies from her pack, the snow began to swirl around them, the storm re-emerging with a fierce vengeance. The world outside her momentarily faded as her thoughts raced ahead. How could she save this cub in the midst of such turmoil? Would she be enough? Or were the odds stacked too high? Just as she felt the icy grip of despair tugging at her thoughts, clarity struck. She remembered the lessons her father had imparted. Resilience in the face of adversity. As she began to wrap the cub in the warmth of her jacket, a realization gripped her. The act of saving this creature was not merely about its survival. It was a harbinger of her own healing. Each set of actions she took not only protected the wolf, but fortified her spirit against the tide of grief. Just then, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, causing her to look up. The mighty muskox stood at a distance, watching. There was an undeniable connection, something that told her she was not alone in her journey. The significance of that presence felt profound, as if she were drawing strength from the ancient spirit of the wild. Emma's resolve hardened as she gripped the tiny creature tightly, ready to rise to her feet against not just the storm itself, but the tempest within her. She needed to make a choice. Would she retreat from this moment of turmoil, or face it head-on? As she fashioned the last of her makeshift shelter, an alarming sound erupted beside her. The muskox began to charge, and Emma's heart leaped into her throat. This was no mere animal, but a living embodiment of the struggles she faced, a test manifesting from her deepest fears. For a fleeting moment she felt paralyzed, the lesson of her father echoing in her mind. The time had come to face her fears head-on. Emma's instincts snapped into overdrive as the muskox barreled toward her. She could feel the ground tremble beneath her, and the air quaked with raw power. Every ounce of her training screamed at her to react, to move, but her mind was grappled by indecision. Would evasion be the answer, or confronting this force of nature with the same fierceness she hoped to embody? She instinctively shifted her body to shield the vulnerable cub in her arms, a fierce maternal instinct igniting within her, urging her to protect it at all costs. In that moment, the muskox exemplified her greatest fears, a wild, untamed force of nature that could crush her ambitions in one sweeping motion. Yet she also recognized it as a reflection of her own internal chaos. The earlier storm of doubt intensified within her, and she felt her heart thundering in rhythm with the charging beast. Then it hit her. Standing strong was her only option. The lessons from her father wouldn't allow her to back down, not from the muskox, and not from the grief and uncertainty that loomed over her life. Emma took a steadying breath, anchoring herself in the currents of the tempest within. She had to make a stand. As the muskox approached, Emma braced herself, drawing upon the latent tenacity she had cultivated under her father's guidance. She lifted her chin defiantly, embodying the spirit of endurance that had been instilled in her since childhood. In that moment, she didn't just see a beast. She saw a test, a trial that beckoned her to rise to the occasion. "You're not going to scare me away," she murmured under her breath, grounding herself in her resolve. The muskox halted abruptly, a creature of massive bulk and imposing stature, mere feet from her. Time seemed to suspend in that instant. Their eyes locked. A mix of challenge and instinct coursed between them. Emma felt a torrent of energy coursing through her, transforming fear into a focused determination. The realization blossomed within her. She could navigate this chaos, not just in the external terrain, but within her own heart. Carefully, she did not move. She chose to stand still and embody her strength. With assertiveness, she planted her feet in the snow, arms slightly outstretched, protecting the cub nestled against her. The air buzzed with tension, her heart pounding loud enough to drown out the howling winds. In this charged moment, Emma felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. The muskox was not just an obstacle. It was a pivot in her journey, encapsulating the struggle and resilience she sought to embody. The muskox snorted, its breath visible in the frigid air, the sheer mass of its form solidifying both her resolve and her fear. She sensed its resolve as well, a determination to protect its own, another instinct she could relate to. In that exchange of energy, she wondered if this wild creature recognized her battle, her quest for identity in a world that felt so desolate. Then, just as quickly as it had charged, the muskox withdrew, pivoting away as if declaring its acceptance of Emma's determination. She felt an odd sense of kinship with the mighty beast. Emma knelt down, cradling the wolf cub tightly. With that first confrontation behind her, breath still cascading in hurried bursts, she began to plan her next course of action. The storm would likely engulf her again, but she was no longer merely surviving. She was fighting to thrive. As she focused on the vulnerable creature against her chest, the weight of her purpose bore down on her. Despite the glaring uncertainty ahead, Emma felt an empowering shift inside. Each decision she made moving forward would cement not only her professional journey as a wildlife scientist, but also her personal commitment to growth through adversity. The storm swirling around them couldn't diminish the light beginning to flicker in her heart. Just then, the wind howled through the clearing again, louder and more insistent, as if it were a herald of the challenges yet to come. Would she be able to face the tempest of her reality now that she had confronted her fears? Would the perseverance she discovered in herself illuminate the path ahead, or were greater trials still lying in wait? Emma's resolve reignited. She had to find out. And so she prepared to push forward, knowing with each step that she was not just saving a wolf cub, but reclaiming her own story amidst the chaos. The stakes continued to ascend, and with that knowledge she ventured forth into the eye of the storm that was brewing, ready to confront whatever awaited her next. The landscape around Emma shifted as she tightened her grip around the wolf cub, the soft warmth of its body contrasting sharply with the biting cold that enveloped them. The muskox had retreated, but the pulse of adrenaline still coursed through her veins. She was left alone in the vast expanse, grappling with a profound need to make sense of her next steps. The wind howled a dissonant song, urging her to push forward. Her heart pressed against her ribcage, each beat echoing the lesson she had just learned. Survival demanded more than instinct. It required a deliberate strategy and self-belief. The wilderness could be cruel, yet every obstacle she faced was an opportunity for growth, a brutal teacher molding her into the scientist she aspired to be. Emma began to assess her surroundings. The snow that glittered under the soft sunlight belied the chaos that lay beneath, hidden dangers, potential allies, and clues waiting to be unearthed. She needed to move, to channel her fear and uncertainty into action. But what was her next move? With the muskox incident still fresh in her mind, Emma remembered her father's words about the duality of nature, beauty intertwined with brutality. It was a cycle, one that dictated everything, survival dependent on resilience. A weight shifted in her chest as she wondered if her disquiet stemmed from viewing challenges as threats rather than as catalysts for growth. Taking a deep breath, Emma began to walk, her feet crunching through the snow as she sought a safe spot to shelter the cub. The wolf's presence reminded her of her goals, igniting her passion anew. Each step felt deliberate, imbued with purpose. She was moving forward, but with care, assessing the environment around her and learning from it. Gradually, she spotted a cluster of trees, a welcome oasis amidst the white expanse. The heart of the thicket seemed to promise both safety and a chance for reflection. As she approached, another thought surfaced, teasing at the edges of her consciousness. Visibility. In hiding, she could devise plans away from predators, both animal and metaphorical. Sliding carefully beneath the protective boughs of the trees, Emma settled against the sturdy trunk of an older pine. The snow had piled there, forming a natural cradle around her that felt both secure and sacred. With the wolf cub nestled against her coat, she allowed some of her tension to dissipate. In the quietness, away from primal threats, clarity unfolded before her. She reflected on her professional aspirations, the research she had once envisioned. How, over time, the fear of failure had dulled those ambitions into vague dreams rather than actionable steps. The cub, however, was a tangible goal, something she could focus on beyond the uncertainties plaguing her. Emma's thoughts drifted toward her project on wildlife rehabilitation, an initiative close to her heart. What if she used this moment, a wild encounter with the muskox, to inform her research? Viewing it through the lens of resilience, integrating her personal struggle into her professional narrative. Through the cub's survival, she realized, lay the lessons of endurance she longed to understand more profoundly. To succeed, she whispered softly, I must embrace the chaos. But just as her resolve solidified, the tranquil moment shattered. The shadows shifted, and the growl of another creature echoed through the trees. Emma's heart sank, a primal instinct flashing an urgent warning. She was not alone, and the very chaos she had embraced was now swirling closer, darkening the sanctuary she had momentarily found. With a helpless glance at the cub, held precariously between her hope and fear, Emma faced the encroaching danger. If she was to navigate this new trial and embrace the chaos, she would have to act swiftly. It was time to confront the adversities head-on and harness the determination she had unearthed to truly earn her place in the wild. The drive to protect what she had embraced stirred within her, a fierce commitment to both the life in her hands and the journey ahead. Would she find the strength to confront this fresh challenge, or would the storm of uncertainty reassert its grip? Emma braced herself, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The deep growl reverberated, a low rumble that spoke of power and menace. Emma's instincts kicked into high gear. She pulled the wolf cub closer, cradling its small frame against her warmth. The heartbeat she felt against her chest resonated with a newfound urgency. She couldn't afford to be paralyzed by fear. Every muscle in her body tugged towards action. That moment crystallized into a decision. Darkness had revealed itself, and she needed to adapt. Emma focused on the growl, straining her ears to pinpoint the exact location of the threat. The frigid air now felt electric, tingling with the promise of confrontation. Slowly, she shifted her position against the tree, peering into the shadows, attempting to discern the creature that had disrupted her sanctuary. Thoughts raced through her mind, strategies and techniques she had studied during years of intensive training. She recalled her lessons on animal behavior and the many survival skills she had thought to apply only in theoretical scenarios. They were more than academic knowledge now. They were tools for her survival. Emma scanned her surroundings, looking for anything. Branches, stones, or even the harness of the cub's fur caked in snow, that could be fashioned into a barricade or a distraction. A flicker of movement caught her eye. A mass of gray fur shifted, and she felt the intensity of her own heartbeat shift into a rapid crescendo. It was larger than she had expected, a dominant creature prowling stealthily. Emma pressed her back against the pine, a thought slicing through the chaos. The muskox encounter had already highlighted her ability to rethink her perspective on danger. Instead of merely retreating and fearing this new predator, What if she channeled her instincts towards a confrontation that would yield knowledge rather than annihilation? Past fears morphed into a strategic advantage. She would expose the flaws in her former self-concept, possibly limiting her encounters with nature. The chaos surrounding her was not a barrier. It was a gateway to understanding resilience in the brutal realm of survival. A sudden gust of wind howled through the branches, and she used the moment to create a plan. She needed to be proactive. Fumbling in the snow for a sturdy branch, she wielded it in her right hand, ready. Emma's breath quickened as adrenaline surged through her veins. Facing the advancing shadow, she felt the duality of her emotions, a mixture of fear and an unwavering resolve. "I'm not prey," she whispered to herself, feeling as if the universe needed to hear her declaration. "I'm part of this wilderness too." The growl intensified, bearing closer. With a swift motion, Emma turned to face the threat fully. She would no longer view herself as a vulnerable visitor. She would transform into a participant, an active force. The wolf cub squirmed, sensing her energy. Emma took a deep breath, steadying her resolve. As the creature came into focus, Emma's heart raced, each pulse embodying the chaotic beauty of nature she yearned to understand. Recognition struck. This was no mere predator seeking a meal. It was navigating its own struggles, epitomizing the very struggle she faced. They were interlinked, diverging paths momentarily colliding in this frozen expanse. Then, a spark ignited within her. This encounter could ultimately inspire the very essence of her research project, not just wildlife rehabilitation, but an exploration of coexistence. What if she could bridge her experiences into something meaningful for both humans and the wildlife they so often disrupted? This realization anchored her determination. Steadying her grip on the branch, Emma stared into the eyes of the approaching creature, prepared not just to protect the cub, but to learn the lessons it could impart. She had embraced chaos, but now it was time to forge a connection. The shadow loomed larger, and the tension thickened in the air. Would she uphold her stance, solidify her newfound identity as protector, or would she back away, receding into the safety of fear? In that taut moment, she understood that her next action would define her path, not just as a scientist, but as a person deeply intertwined with the wild itself. A distant howl echoed through the trees, possibly foretelling a larger confrontation. Emma's heart raced. The challenge had just begun. Would she uncover the strength needed to face not only the threats surrounding her, but the deeper truths waiting to be discovered within herself? Emma crouched, ready for whatever awaited her, feeling a resolve form in her chest. This was only the beginning. The tension hung over the clearing like a dark cloud, threatening to unleash chaos at any moment. Emma stood rooted in place, her instincts battling the allure of retreat. The looming shadow inched closer, revealing not just a predator, but a mirror of her own struggles. The growl continued to resonate, clashing with her thoughts, demanding her response. Face it head on, she reminded herself, the urgency simmering beneath her skin. She had prepared for this moment academically, but had never envisioned experiencing the raw terror and exhilaration that accompanied it. Harnessing her knowledge, she considered the creature's perspective. Wolves relied heavily on their pack. Loneliness could trigger aggression. This thought ignited another idea. A distraction might not only divert its attention, but also showcase her dual role as a researcher and protector of the vulnerable. With newfound resolve, Emma took a step forward, branches cracking underfoot. The wolf cub wriggled in her grasp, sensing the shift in energy. "Stay still," she whispered, as she turned to scan her surroundings. The remnants of fallen trees laid scattered across the ground. Had she miscalculated? The moment was electric with possibilities, yet danger thrummed just beneath. She swiftly picked up a nearby stone. It was heavy, but she could hurl it away from the creature, creating the noise needed to catch its attention. With her heart pounding, she launched the stone into a thicket of brush, the crack of impact echoing against the otherwise muffled landscape. The creature's ears perked, its focus temporarily diverted. Emma seized the opportunity, bolting sideways, while cradling the cub tightly. Yet, as she moved, an unsettling thought crept in. What was she really trying to achieve? While protecting the cub was paramount, this was deeper than mere survival. She was in a battle not just with a predator, but against her own narrative. A narrative that had long defined her as an outsider in the natural world, instead of an interconnected entity. The wolf's eyes flickered to her, assessing her movements. Emma sensed the moment stretch out, each second weighted with uncertainty. Would it turn back, or would it seek her out with renewed ferocity? Her mind reeled, but she anchored herself in the belief that knowledge stemmed from this very intersection of fear and action. "You're not just an escape artist," she said, internal dialogue now urgent. "You can reshape this experience. Show them you're not just a visitor. You're a part of this." Deciding to escalate her strategy, Emma turned her focus back to the advancing creature. She had read of various ways to communicate with wary animals, and realized she needed to establish a connection rather than challenge their motives. With a gentle voice, one filled with calmness and authority, she spoke. "I mean you no harm." It was a risk. Vulnerability could incite danger, but she hoped it could also convey peace. Leaning slightly forward, she exposed her hands, palms up, as though offering a truce. To her surprise, the creature paused. There was a flicker of curiosity. In that shared heartbeat, she grasped something crucial. The authenticity of her voice and intentions transcended the barriers of fear. Emma had come to see that coexistence depended not solely on the right action, but also on genuine connection. Amidst this interaction, another realization struck her. She indeed had the capability to alter her trajectory, not merely as a scientist gathering data, but as a participant in a larger story. This moment of vulnerability was a testament not only to her strength, but also her willingness to redefine her existence within this wilderness. The air was thick with possibilities, and Emma felt an internal shift. No longer was she simply faced with a predator, she was confronting a journey into self-discovery. She felt the reins of her identity tighten in her grasp, and as the wolf continued to regard her, she understood the true nature of her research, the narrative of connection and coexistence. Yet the implications of this encounter weighed heavily. As she shifted her gaze to the cub, still nestled protectively in her arms, the question loomed larger than ever. How could she navigate the complexities of both worlds she now inhabited? The boundaries of practicality and emotional investment blurred, and she recognized that her personal evolution could illuminate new paths for both humans and wildlife alike. But the wolf's snarl broke her reverie. The moment had passed, and tension resumed, escalating towards the inevitable. Emma crouched low once more, determined to better understand what consequences this new relationship would yield. The creature moved slowly, and in that fragile moment reflected both danger and profound possibility. Emma questioned. Did she have the audacity to emerge whole from this tangled web of instinct, fear, and learning? The stakes had never been clearer, and the next decision would define everything. The tension suffused the air, thickening as Emma crouched lower, her pulse sinking with the rhythmic growl of the wolf. But suddenly, the landscape shifted. Emerging from the tree line with an imperious presence was a massive muskox, its hefty stature dwarfing both the wolf and Emma. Surprise coursed through Emma as she momentarily forgot the danger posed by the predator. The muskox moved with a slow, deliberate grace, yet its sheer bulk signaled that it commanded respect from every creature around. Emma found herself mesmerized by this unexpected twist in the tableau, aware that it could either serve as a shield between her and the wolf, or provoke further aggression. Instinctively, Emma grasped the wolf cub tighter, not wanting to lose her grip on her responsibility. The muskox's shaggy coat glinted in the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees, its large horns curving majestically. Emma felt a sense of awe wash over her. It seemed like a guardian of the wild, embodying an ancient resilience she desperately wanted to tap into. While the muskox continued its slow approach, the wolf's growl morphed into a more unsettling snarl, a cacophony of power and desperation. Emma shifted her attention back to the immediate threat. Her carefully curated plan began to unravel, and instincts took precedence once again. "She's just a cub," Emma murmured, unsure if the musky beast could comprehend her plea. Yet strangely enough, she believed it could. The weight of the situation was palpable, and a silent dialogue ignited between them. In those seconds, her resolve solidified. This encounter was more than just survival in the wild. It was an opportunity to expand her understanding, to step further into the vibrant tapestry of life that was woven around her, interspersed with moments of uncertainty and courage. Her mind raced as she absorbed the dynamics playing out in the clearing. Suddenly, the muskox paused, its gaze lingering on the wolf, as if assessing its next move. Emma recognized that this animal had its own narrative to unfold, and her presence was now intertwined with it. The weight of personal responsibility clashed with the overwhelming desire for comprehension, pushing her to seek clarity amidst chaos. Emma took a deep breath, tapping into her academic pursuits as she began to connect the dots. Much like wolves, muskoxen are social creatures that thrived within the context of their groups. Perhaps the predator's aggression was not only triggered by hunger, but also by its instinct to protect what it perceived as its territory or kin. As if responding to her train of thought, the muskox lowered its head and took a cautious step forward. It understood the fragility of existence, a juxtaposition of life and death in this very moment. Could it be that it sensed Emma's fearlessness and desire for coexistence? With the intoxicating blend of danger and possibility surrounding her, Emma aimed for synergy rather than opposition. She stood straighter, holding her position between the wolf cub and the approaching muskox. "Let us all exist peacefully," she voiced out to the air, an offering more than just words. Could this be her moment to shift potential discord into harmony? But fear persisted. The wolf, perceiving the muskox as both a challenge and an encroachment into its territory, made a quick advance. Emma held her breath as the creature's confidence surged, emboldened by instinct. Would she have to choose between the aggressive wolf and the steadfast muskox to protect the cub she so desperately wanted to save? While the scene unfolded before her, Emma recognized the profound complexity of her role. Each encounter was shaping her, not just as a researcher but as an advocate, a participant in the precarious dance of survival. This moment demanded clarity. While she ached to forge connections, it was also essential to navigate through instinctive fears and responsibilities toward both animals. However, just as she contemplated her next move, the muskox casually swung its formidable horns, interrupting the volatile tensions that threatened to spiral. With unexpected ferocity, it stood its ground, as if embodying a protective instinct of its own. Emma's heartbeat quickened as she perceived the possibilities rapidly shifting once again. Were they on the precipice of conflict, or a new understanding? The consequences of her decision now extended beyond just the moment, shaping the very nature of her existence within these interwoven lives. As the anticipation grew, Emma mentally braced herself. She sensed a turning point, actions leading her towards a crossroad that would test her resolve. Would she embrace the unpredictable outcome, or turn back to the safety of scholarly discourse? The clash was imminent, and she felt an indelible shift within her core, echoing the urgency of nature's unyielding demands. And in that pivotal second, as varying energies collided, her next choices loomed before her like a looming shadow over the clearing, a manifestation of her evolving self that hung delicately in the balance. Would she dive into this uncertain collaboration, or retreat into the familiar arms of earlier definitions of herself? The stark edges of that decision ignited a new spark within her, one that promised to illuminate what lay ahead. The muskox stood firm, a natural barrier pulsating with an ancient energy, and Emma felt the weight of its mass acting as a silent ally in the heated standoff. The wolf, its predatory instincts ignited, paced back, muscles taut, ready to spring into action. Emma's heart sank as she sensed the dire need to navigate this clash without inflaming the situation further. She took a deep breath, her mind racing through all she had learned about animal behavior. Yet the stakes felt alarmingly personal in this crucible of nature. "Focus," she whispered to herself, feeling the cool air bite her cheeks. The wolf still growled, eyes fixed on her tiny charge, the wolf cub wriggling and whimpering in her arms. Emma imagined the fear coursing through the small creature. It was vulnerable, helpless. But so was Emma, ensnared in a situation where intellect met instinct, both her own and the animal's. Her body began to mirror the stillness of the muskox, but the true essence of her intent lay deeper. What could she offer to this poignant ballet of nature? Suddenly clarity washed over her. She needed to protect both animals and herself, avoiding a detrimental confrontation. The lesson here was not solely about wildness or domination. It was about understanding and coexistence. Against the backdrop of snarls, she initiated a measured approach. "You're not a foe." She aimed her tone toward the wolf, conscious of how words could bridge the gap between fear and understanding. "You're protecting what's yours, just like him." She pointed toward the muskox, the words flowing from her more naturally than she had anticipated. The muskox shifted slightly, its broad frame acting as a metaphorical shield, solid and grounded. To be part of this natural hierarchy demanded respect and recognition of the roles each creature played. Emma pondered her role now as not just a researcher, but as a participant in nature's storyline, one defined by instinct, resilience, and survival. But it was also a new chapter where she could weave herself into the narrative of the wild, stepping up to protect those without voices. As if responding to her appeal, the wolf's snarl loosened momentarily as it recalibrated its approach. Emma seized the moment, sensing that both creatures struggled under the weight of their circumstances. They were both products of their environments. "I can help," she said, the words spilling out with a newfound confidence. The struggle for understanding translated into a profound sense of responsibility. She was advocating for less chaos and more cohesion among disparate forces. Each heartbeat's rhythm mirrored the tumultuous dance between predator and prey. Yet in that dance, Emma discovered a flicker of hope, a chance to enforce collaboration over conflict. In a swift, instinctual move aimed at reducing hostility, Emma took a gentle step forward, lowering her body to further embody the muskox's tranquility. "Please," she groaned, entreating the universe and the beings in front of her. Suddenly, the story shifted. The muskox's stature, once an emblem of threat, became that of guardianship. The mass of the beast seemed to envelop not just Emma, but the tableau itself. In an intrinsic acknowledgement of Emma's calming energy, the wolf wavered, its growl diminishing to an uncertain whimper. Waves of relief rushed over Emma, threading through the tension that still crackled in the air, binding all three of them in this unintentional alliance. She sensed an ancient understanding blossoming among them, a recognition that survival doesn't always need to come at the cost of fear and aggression. Yet, amid the blossoming possibility, a shadow flickered across her thoughts. Deep within, she wrestled with lingering doubts. Would this moment actually translate into a lasting understanding, or was it merely a temporary reprieve? This new understanding demanded more from Emma than her heart was ready to unveil. Just as she felt emboldened by her decision to stand at the crossroads of harmony, she realized the path ahead remained obscured and fraught with unpredictability. What lay beyond this initial act of intercession? Would she be capable of maintaining peace among these formidable forces? An undercurrent of worry surged. Her choices echoed through a reality much larger than herself. Emma stood poised, the weight of her ambition pressing against her skin. The world around seemed to freeze, a poised breath held in the balance of nature's grand design. And in that intense moment, she knew the next chapter awaited, one that would further test the limits of her resolve and spirit. Would the dance she started lead them toward reconciliation, or deeper conflict? Emma could feel the currents of potential shifting once again, each heartbeat a reminder of the profound decisions still to come. Emma remained acutely aware of the wolf's hesitant demeanor. The tension in the air was palpable, as each breath felt like a shared commitment to redefine the struggle at hand. She instinctively knew that what she had fostered thus far could dissolve as easily as mist with the rising sun. A sudden surge of resolve enveloped her. This didn't merely involve animal instincts. This was about an evolving understanding of her own potential as a communicator in the wild. With careful deliberation, Emma adjusted her posture, grounding herself further among the vibrational energies around her. She exhaled slowly, allowing her thoughts to align with the stoic presence of the muskox. The two animals, representative of primal power and lurking predator, seemed to commune with her in silence, as if waiting for her next move, her next declaration of intent. "What do you need from me?" she asked softly, directing the question towards the wolf. Would it even comprehend her words? The answer bloomed effortlessly in her mind. The wolf sought assurance, a connection that transcended instinct. It was a plea for acknowledgement, a recognition that drew her into the sphere of its survival narrative. That inspiration sparked a brighter determination within Emma. She had the power to pivot this dialogue from potential conflict. Emma slowly lowered her arms, cradling the cub closer. The raw vulnerability of the small creature ignited her protective instincts. As she looked toward the wolf, she focused on all the wild conversations she had witnessed during her years of observation, from the ripple of fear in a herd of deer to the wise grace of migrating birds. Nature was a chorus of exchanges, and here now was her chance to inject her own voice. "What if we worked together?" she asked, surprising herself with the clarity and authority in her tone. She was staking a claim in this symbiotic dance. She pointed toward the cub, an embodiment of innocence, and continued, "He is not your enemy. He is more like family. We all want to survive." The wolf ceaselessly shifted its weight, its gaze oscillating between Emma and the creature she held. In that moment, Emma felt a coherent link forge between them, a silent charter establishing respect for their shared existence. Each animal was neither solely predator nor prey. They oscillated freely along the spectrum of survival, just as she did in her daily life. What was her daily struggle if not an entanglement of instinct and intellect? The weight of her decisions pressed heavily against her, much like the responsibilities she carried in her professional life. This encounter echoed the conflicts she grappled with back in the lab, a place where data clashed with emotion, research proposed solutions while ethical dilemmas loomed large. She was finding parallels between her quest in the wild and her studies among the artificial lights of her university, a journey that had led her deeper than mere academic inquiry. This was about impacting lives in real ways, catalyzing relationships, breaking down walls, and building bridges instead. Suddenly, without hesitation, she took a step closer, lowering herself even further to ground level. In that act of submission, vulnerability, she opened herself to these creatures, allowing her voice to transcend mere survival instincts into compassionate communication. Together, we can create harmony. What do you say? As if responding to her offering, the wolf's posture shifted from aggressive tension toward cautious curiosity. Emma felt the tension around her ease, sensing that her moment of connection had transcended the boundaries of predator and prey. The muskox remained vigilant, embodying its guardian role, while the wolf's growl dwindled to an introspective silence. Just then, however, the rumble of distant thunder shattered the fragile truce. The sky, once clear and inviting, grew ominous, clouds swirling as if echoing the turmoil that churned within her. Would the encroaching storm disrupt not only her physical surroundings but also the fragile peace she had nurtured? Emma inhaled sharply, every instinct in her screaming for caution. The choices before her multiplied, a multitude of paths branching out with unforeseen consequences. Each decision held the promise of either a deeper alliance or a complete unraveling of the understanding she had sought to forge. An unsettling sensation slid down her spine. Could she really maintain this newfound harmony when chaos brewed just beyond the horizon? Emma steadied her breath, at once fascinated and frightened by the unpredictable journey ahead. One question loomed large in her mind. Its answer now seemed inevitable. Would she rise to meet the storm, or would she allow the raging winds of fate to sweep her off course? As the clouds gathered ominously overhead, Emma felt an unexpected sense of calm wash over her. The muskox remained steadfast, a bulwark against the encroaching storm, while the wolf had retreated slightly, its growling replaced by a watchful stillness. Emma took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. She was at a precipice, not just within the wilderness, but within her own psyche. The roar of thunder resonated like a demand for her to act, not just on instinct, but with purpose. It was as if the universe was signaling her to embrace her agency and claim her place in this narrative. She understood that her journey was evolving from mere survival to a quest for harmony within herself and among the wild. "Let's turn this into a collaboration," she said softly but firmly, directing her words toward the wolf. "I see your struggle. I understand the weight you carry. Just as I'm trying to protect this cub, I can help make sense of the chaos we navigate. We all want to thrive." She felt her heart race, not with fear, but with a burgeoning confidence. The weight of expectation had lifted. She had moved beyond the need for validation to a place of shared purpose. This narrative was hers to reshape. A pulse of understanding passed through the air, a silent acknowledgement that rippled between her and the two creatures. Emma reached down to stroke the wolf cub tenderly, its warmth a reminder of innocence and vulnerability. In many ways, this cub represented her own journey, fragile yet fueled by an innate drive to survive against the odds. Above her, the sky split open, heavy droplets beginning to pelt the ground. But rather than detracting from the moment, the rain felt almost liberating. It stripped away the lingering doubts, washing away her fears. She would face the storm not with trepidation, but with determination. "Together," she reiterated, straightening her back, "we will find a way." The intensity of her resolve ignited a change in the atmosphere. The wolf's gaze softened, and the rising tension dissipated as the powerful muskox snorted, its massive body still poised as a protective presence. Emma realized that she had transitioned into a role that went beyond observation. She was becoming a participant in this intricate web of existence. Despite the fearsome forces that roiled around them, she felt emboldened by clarity. It was time for action. Emma pulled the cub closer and took a definitive step forward. "I need you both to trust that we can create balance here." Drawing her attention back to the storm, she recognized that her journey mirrored the fierceness of nature. The change was imminent, but with it came the possibility of transformation. The wolf's presence reminded her that fear was not an enemy. It was a signal to adapt and grow. With this understanding, Emma turned her gaze toward the muskox, which seemed to exude both strength and wisdom. The wolf had relaxed, gratitude glimmering in its eyes, and in that fleeting moment, they were bound by shared understanding. "Let's secure a shelter," she proposed, breaking the veil of tension. "We should work as a team. Nature thrives on connection. Let's embody that." As Emma led the way toward the thicket of trees, she felt a sense of purpose coursing through her veins, mingling with the adrenaline that the approaching storm stirred within. She reached for low-hanging branches, weaving them together into a makeshift structure. To her surprise, the muskox followed suit, pawing the snow to reveal stronger branches, and even the wolf moved closer, seeking warmth amid the resolute purpose they shared. In this newfound cooperative endeavor, Emma realized that she had successfully shifted from isolation to collaboration. Each creature played a vital part in ensuring their survival, a microcosm of the interconnectedness of all living things. They maneuvered with an instinctual grace that reminded her of her own growth. Adopting the perspectives of others had reinvigorated her sense of agency. As the storm raged outside their temporary haven, Emma's heart swelled with hope, a profound achievement amidst the chaos of her external and internal worlds. This was not merely about protecting a wolf cub anymore. They were combining forces, refining her identity as a wildlife biologist, a daughter, and a guardian. When the wind howled with an intensity that threatened to tear them apart, Emma felt one united spirit among them, powered by the melding of her ambition with the raw tenacity of the wild. The storm may have been raging outside, but Emma had successfully found shelter, in both the physical and emotional sense. As the night wore on, they remained nestled together, cocooned in their makeshift shelter. The dual connection with the muskox and the wolf felt transformative, forging a new foundation of trust that echoed within her own heart. Emma was no longer just a biologist pursuing her dreams. She had proven to herself that she could thrive in the wild, balancing both her purpose and her past, while paving the way for the future. With dawn's light breaking over the horizon, she lifted her head and inhaled the crisp morning air. They had weathered the storm together, and the sun's rays symbolized not merely a new day, but the meaningful journey of growth and healing she had undergone. Emma knew she would return to the family farm. Her journey was not an abandonment, but rather a reclamation of her roots, one interwoven with resilience and strength. This experience had reshaped her narrative and clarified her aspirations. It was time to take that transformative spirit back home. She could affirm her dedication to her family, ensuring that passion and kinship would guide her path moving forward. Emma cherished that newfound connection, imagining the future she would forge, a future where her love for wildness and kinship would coexist seamlessly. With the wolves howling in the distance and the muskox standing by her, she quietly made a promise, not just to herself, but to all those whose lives intertwined with hers, animal and human alike. She would always strive to bridge the worlds of research and compassion, fostering connections that would bind them all into a harmonious future. The path was set. She had emerged stronger, ready to create a legacy marked by understanding. If you believe in the power of stories that ignite transformation, now is the moment to support this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and uplift these narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heartwarming resolution.